Hello and welcome to Restoration News, a conservative news media outlet from the heartland of America. I'm your host, Nick Givas, and today we're very lucky to have Dinesh D'Souza, best-selling author of Obama's America 2016 and filmmaker of the groundbreaking documentary 2,000 Mules That Shocked America.
We honor you, Father, for all that you've done for us.
Chief Division Counsel and DOJ have approved a no-knock breach. We want the subject to be on display, doing the walk of shame, full visual impact. Any questions?
Are we becoming a police state?
Government told American citizens they couldn't go to church on Sunday.
For the first time in my life, I'm saying to myself, am I going to get a knock at the door?
FBI warrant, come to the door now!
The Patriot Act and FISA were used against Donald Trump.
These individuals have commissioned the biggest propaganda play in U.S. history.
They don't go after the people that rigged the election. They go after the people that want to find out what the hell happened.
We don't need to have a crime. What we need is a person to look at. And then we go find out what crime you did.
FBI! Our focus is shifting. Our main priority as a bureau is going to be domestic terrorism.
It really paints anybody who's right of center.
If you're a pro-life, pro-family Catholic, they define you as radical.
These are anti-government,
we have freedom of religion and freedom of speech,
violent extremists, and they must be dealt with. We can do anything we want.
Dinesh, it's so fantastic to have you on the show, and I know we have a great personal relationship and friendship that goes back now many years. And how did it come to this point that you're making a film called Police State? How did it fall so far, so fast?
It seems almost unbelievable that we have seen such a rapid escalation or free fall, depending on how you want to look at it, in terms of all our basic rights and liberties suddenly being called into question. I mean, think about it, you know, if I were to talk about free speech or freedom of conscience, religious liberty, the right to petition the government for grievances. We have people being indicted in Georgia for doing exactly that, or equal rights, equal justice under the law. Are a single one of these rights completely secure? No. Now, I think the roots of this go back, some would say to the 1990s, but certainly to the aftermath of 9/11, when a lot of citizens, me included, assigned to the government, gave the government a lot of additional surveillance and police powers, but obviously with the expectation that those would be trained or targeted on foreign terrorists who were trying to harm us. And little did we realize that if you kind of fast forward a decade, these exact same powers could then be turned against domestic critics, domestic political opponents. And we would see a police state now actually equipped with the very powers handed to it, turning against some of the very same people who gave the police state those powers.
What an irony, in that we were so united after 9/11 that they've taken it and used it against us, almost weaponizing those things, as you said. Do you expect pushback from the film similar to what you've experienced in the past? And adding to that, do you think when the police state does begin targeting more people, do you think organized religion will be in their line of fire?
For sure. To answer your second question first, I think that religion is always an obstacle to the police state. In fact, I don't know a single police state that doesn't target religion. So we've got to learn from experience around the world. There's a reason that in North Korea, in China, in the old Soviet Union, religion was a target. And I'm going in my podcast through Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. He'll always talk about political dissidents, and he'll talk about different groups that are being targeted, ethnic nationalities, but then right there, the Russian Orthodox Church, dissident believers who don't go along with the sort of worship of the state. And I guess that's probably the problem, that the religious believer worships something higher than the state and is thus an automatic target. Now, this topic of the police state is not a banned topic in America yet. it's not in that sense like election fraud. If you go on the YouTube guidelines, for example, you'll see election fraud along with abortion and climate change. And that, of course, posed problems for my last film, 2,000 Mules. I had to try to figure out ways to sort of navigate around the shoals of censorship. But I think with this film, although I'm sure that the film itself will be something that will be taken notice of by the emerging police state, it's not currently on the forbidden list.
Thank God for that. And with the pushback, do you expect anything like what in the past when you were persecuted during the Obama era, or do you think this is something that will wake people up more than cause persecution to, say, yourself or the movement?
Well, in 2013, when I had my case with the Obama administration, and by the way, that was a little bit of a window into the psychology of a police state, because sitting across from these attorneys representing the SDNY, the Southern District of New York, and then also the Justice Department under Eric Holder, I got the idea that these are guys who, if they could, would be really happy to put me away for 20 years. Think about it. I mean, they were getting me for exceeding the campaign finance limit by donating $20,000 of my own money to a college friend of mine who was running for office. And yet, they didn't see me as someone who went over the line. Okay, we need to give him the same penalty everybody else gets. No, their view was we'd like to take this guy out if we can. And that's the police state mentality. And yet at that time, I saw it as a one-off. I'm like, oh, you know what? I irritated this vindictive narcissist in the White House, Obama, by making my film on Obama. This is a one-off. This is not something that is going to be seen in a systematic way in the country. So I did not see my case as a precursor to what would happen later to Carter Page, Papadopoulos, Michael Flynn, and of course now Trump. But in a way, I guess my case was a little bit of a window into the future.
What does the rise of a conservative counterculture, especially in Hollywood, like you, some people like Jim Caviezel, The Chosen, things like this, what would that look like? And what does it take to get there to compete with this Hollywood that is full of liberal elites that have contempt for people like you and me?
Well, the Hollywood system makes it very easy. If I look at, let's say, a counterpart of mine, perhaps the most successful filmmaker, political filmmaker on the left, Michael Moore. So Michael Moore goes to Hollywood, he goes to a studio, he goes, I want to make a film. And they're like, okay, here's $10 million. And so he goes ahead and makes the film. And then everything is done for him. They book him on The View, they book him on The Today Show, he's on Bill Maher on Monday, he's on Stephen Colbert on Tuesday. And so making the film is the only thing that he has to do. The reason that conservative films, I think, are harder and very few have been successful is because they require a very wide combination of talents. You need to have the legal ability to get this whole thing going. You need to be able to raise money. You then need to be able to make a film and have the cinematic techniques to do that. And once you're done with all that, you have to be able to market the film. So even if you have one or two of those skills, but not all four, you're not going to succeed. And this is why conservative filmmaking is rolling the stone up the hill. Liberal filmmaking is rolling the stone down the hill.
Well, we're glad you're out there making the effort because America needs it and they seem like they're clamoring for it. And in that vein, what can we do to encourage conservatives or even neutral Americans that are just dejected, they're deflated? How can they as individuals get involved in what you're trying to do, your mission, and what would you say to help lift them up out of this malaise that's hit the country as of late?
Well, my own way of thinking about all this is not to try to take on yourself the full burden of a problem, because you're not going to be able to. I mean, I can't stop the police state just by myself, but I can do my part. And so we want to narrow our scope and think of what are the things that I can do. Am I using my full influence in the sphere that I have? And I try to do that. And I say to myself, once I've done that, I've done my duty. I've done my part. Now, if we still get a police state, that's because other people didn't do their part. It's because the psychology of Republicans is too defeatist or too invertebrate. So other factors beyond my control are involved. But I am making the movie as a weapon, if you will. And so I'm hoping that other people will be like, wow, I don't have to make the weapon. Dinesh has already done that. Let me use the movie as a way to spread the message about what's happening in the country. So that's one thing you can do. You can be sort of an evangelist, an apostle, if you will, and help us get the word out. Now, there are other practical things you can do. You can volunteer to participate in elections, become an election observer, become an election judge. But ultimately, police states are stopped by institutions, Supreme Courts, Republican House of Representatives, Republican governors, secretaries of state, attorneys general. These are the ways to mobilize institutional power in our society to block and roll back the police state.
Well, again, you liken yourself to an animal in the herd trying to alert the rest of them to the predator amidst the trees. So I like that analogy that you gave me when we spoke before the interview. So finally, you said there's a very unique distribution method for this film. How can people buy tickets and how can they view the film this time around?
So in the post kind of COVID environment, the theater landscape is different than it used to be. My earlier films all went kind of wide in the theaters. This time what we've done is we have bought out. We bought every seat in hundreds of theaters. And we're selling the tickets on our website, which is policestatefilm.net. So if you go on that website, you can plug in your zip code and boom, it'll show you all the theaters around you that are playing the film. It's really fun to see it in the theater, and it's really cool to go with like-minded people. So I urge people to take your extended family or put up a notice in your church and go with a bunch of guys. You don't have to buy out the theater. We've done that. You can go in and buy 10 tickets or 20 tickets or however many you need and go with a conservative group or go with a Christian group and see this, because I think it will get you really fired up and you're going to want to talk about it. And so that's a wonderful way to do it. Now, if you can't go to the theater, and some people are going to say, well, theater is 30 minutes away. All right. In that case, there's a virtual premiere on Friday, October 27th. Tickets are also at policestatefilm.net. We play the full movie. There's a live Q&A with Dan Bongino and me to follow. And all of that is for the price of a movie ticket. So if you don't want to go to the theater, no problem. You can watch at home on Friday, October 27th.
That's awesome. Again, that's policestatefilm.net. And thank you, Dinesh, my friend, for coming on. You'll be in our prayers. And good luck with this latest release. I hope it wakes up the country because we certainly need it.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you for tuning in today with Restoration News. Until next time, please consider subscribing at restorationofamerica.com for more conservative media. And as always, remember to remain fearless and keep the faith. And thank you for watching Restoration News. To stay up to date, click the link below to learn more about all the investigative work we're doing to help save America.